was thinking as to what we call this the other day, and in a moment of brilliance, which is also one of those things where you sort of stare at the wall in the bath, and then the answers to questions that people have asked you about 2 weeks, possibly even a few years ago, come to mind for the first time, where you're sort of lying there in bubbles and sort of going buzz-eyed, and then you go, Alexander O'Neill sang that song. And then you realise you asked it in a pub in July 2006. I had one of those moments last week.
Like when you sit there and go, April O'Neill, that was the report from the Tells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of there was a thing on Twitter of people that say words incorrectly. And I worked with a lass once who would get into arguments, and then when she was raising a certain point, she'd say, well, specifically, and I was like, specifically, like a big ocean.
I know someone who does that.
Yeah. So, and that arrived to me the other day. But also, we could call this, you know how there's the term podcast?
I do.
We could call this padcofts.
Yo, padcofts.
Or cough pads. No, that just sounds like something a child would wear to stop urinating in a buggy.
Cough pads. I mean, maybe the kind of thing that a child would wear if they've got a flu and they're sneezing and it is causing some discharge. It's a cough pad.
And speaking of discharge, there is a character in Dark Souls called Ceaseless Discharge.
Which is such a delightful name, and I've seen of him, and it's delightful.
Mike McWhirter was wearing the Ceaseless Discharge T-shirt on the Destiny chat thing on Sunday. So McWhirter, if you are listening, I know it's out of stock. You know that I know it's out of stock, and I know that you wore that, and it bothers me. I want one. I want one. I want one. I want one.
What you're essentially saying is you want McWhirter to send you his.
No, I just want Meat Bun to get them back in stock. They did an amazing range of Demons and Darkness T-shirts, and there were two in particular. There was a Ceaseless Discharge one, which was made up to look like a kind of metal album cover, and then there was one which was a playing card which had the Maiden on it, and it had you sort of as a knight kneeling before the Maiden in Black from Demon's Souls.
Oh.
So yeah, they're pretty nifty, but all of them were really good, but they went out of stock sort of quite quickly, understandably.
Everything I want goes out of stock. It's an absolute bastard.
So is it your fault?
It might be, I'm sorry. Well, I didn't know that I wanted it until I've seen them. I mean, I have seen the Ceaseless Discharge shirt, and I've seen it, and I do want it. I mean, it's a nice shirt. It's got the bonus of confusing your parents.
It will make old women in coffee shops just look over and stare and feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And then stare again.
Also useful for trolling your friends who are into metal, going, oh yeah, have you heard of Ceaseless Discharge? Have you heard? They're good, aren't they? And they'll go, yeah. And you'll go, poser!
Ceaseless Discharge would be the sort of band which has a regular singer and has what I would term a Cookie Monster singer. They're going like, yeah, and the things, and all the things. They're like, cookies, I want cookies. Cookies for me.
Kind of like what Linkin Park do, where they have a singer and then they have a rapper. Like this with the singer, and they've also got a gravel mouth.
Wasn't it them that did the Mission Impossible song, where they sang about putting a mic to your grill? Which, you know, if you do that, your microphone will melt, and I'd imagine you might get a bit of plastic over your toast.
I think wasn't that Limp Bizkit?
They all blew in together to me.
That was new metal. That incredibly memorable genre.
It's no Susan Boyle, is it? Let's face it. That would be fantastic if Susan Boyle sang the theme tune to Mission Impossible. Just in a kind of vaguely tubby Scottish accent. She's just going do 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 do. There's just no lyrics. It's just her doing that.
Now I know why you want to hate me. Now I know why you want to hate me.
I see exactly where you went there, and I think it's time to move on.
Definitely. So let's start off the first official Padcofts. Padcofts.
We might need to work on that.
That's not the best title, but it will do for now.
Logo, it's fine.
Yeah, I'll go on Photoshop. I'll ask someone later. Yes, the purpose of this Padcock podcast is that, as you may know, I played Demon's Souls quite recently, quite publicly on the forum. I had a jolly good time with it, and assisting every step of the way was this fine gentleman, Mr. Coffee. And he has a wonderful thread on the forum, the Dark Souls thread, that's 850 comments is it almost at now?
Let me have a gulp.
Okay.
840 currently.
840? Wow. So by the time this goes up, it might be at 850, so I might be correct in the future.
It may well be.
Marty, it's your parents.
So didn't you say that when you first played Demon's Souls, it didn't click at all? It
rankled. I rented it. I rented it from Love Film. It was maybe a year and a half ago. So I think Dark was already out by that point, but it wasn't really I just rented it on the, I thought, I'll try it out. It sounds hard. I'll give it a rent, see what it's like. Mm-hmm. I didn't click with it. I did not click with it. I don't think I even beat the first level. I never got to the phalanx. I think it was the Blue-Eyed Knight that got me every time. The one that sits on the bridge and just gets in your way. And I think at the time, I don't think I had the patience for it. And I sort of played it. I was like, I'm just dying over and over and over, and it just wasn't clicking. I wasn't getting it. It wasn't clicking. I was just dying over and over and over, and it wasn't fun. So what happened about 6 months ago is that Sean, thank you, Sean, lent me his copy of Demons. And this is when we were making quite a few of the Polynauts play videos.
Did he kind of force it upon you and say you really need to give this another go? Or
he pretty much forced it upon me because he knew it would go badly.
So it was just to see you.
We were picking games that
despair.
Yeah, games that were either entertaining to watch or incredibly awful. Like Revelations 2012 always gets a shout. And we thought it's a hard game, and I'd expressed my distaste for it before, and he's like, "We'll play it again." So, for God's sake! So started playing it again, and for some reason this time it clicked. And I was doing all right, and then I think it was around that time that your Dark thread started up. Was when I was getting into it properly, and aided with suggestions from yourself, a couple other people in the thread as well. Saber Swinger in particular gave me a couple of tips that got me through that King Alant fight. But yeah, it was the community helped me, and I managed to get through it.
So what would you say that you did differently the first time to the second time? I know there's the mindset that's there where you said that you just as to whether you were in the right place to play it that second time round, but were you playing it differently? Because at the point I remember on the forum that you said it clicked for you, you put up a post about momentum in games, about any.
Like combat with weight was what I was looking for. Like, so if you're a big guy and you do a charging attack and then the person dodges, you're going to go on for a bit longer because you're a fat guy.
Yeah.
And I wanted kind of weight and physicality in a way. Not just jumping and Hadoukens. And I think in some way I might have got that idea from when I was playing Demons, because it's a very heavy kind of combat. It's you commit, you put your shield up or you stab, and if you mistime it, you've committed and you've cocked up.
But I remember mentioning that to you on the forum at the time, after you'd put up the momentum post, and you kind of went, "Oh yeah." Yeah,
it was literally it was light bulb. It was light bulb moment, and I was like, "Oh yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I mean,
at the time, sort of when I was first playing it, there was a degree of, I'm sure. The only way that I articulated it at the time was physics mathematics, which is the fact that if you held your shield up, you'd take a little bit of damage from that, and you could only take subsequent amounts of damage before your guard was broken, and then if you swung your sword, that would take a certain amount of stamina, and you wouldn't have as much to block with, but also the physicality of the enemy, and if they jumped into the fore, that your attacks would then be increased because of the added impetus that they were throwing towards towards the weapon, and it absolutely fascinated me. It did my nut in. I was just sort of I'd stare into space, and I was trying to process it, and that was a revelation for me, and that little balancing act. And I think with the balancing act of the attacks, because the controls are really intuitive for the most part. You know, with the defense and the attacks, with the left and right, right buttons and stuff. I don't know. I think a lot of the decisions that you make in the game, because of that balance, seem like the same sort of decisions that you would make in the real world.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to the shopping centre and you've not really got the undead coming at you. You've just got
have you seen my shopping centre?
Squadrons of pushchairs and things. But
flat caps down everywhere.
I don't know. I think because of the amount of the harshness of the world, and because you're attuned to every single last noise in the background, which is a true survival horror trope. You're protective about yourself rather than going in all guns blazing. You think of self-preservation first, rather than I can just hammer into this. And at the point where you do start to get cocky with it, the game's waiting for you.
Yes. I was going to say the exact same thing. It's definitely, if you stop paying attention, like if you've got your shield up and you're poking through and you're being careful and you're taking your time, you're clearing things out in your own speed, and you're paying attention, and then you think, well, this is getting easy, and you just start barreling through, that's when you're going to get stomped. And you're going to get stomped hard because you didn't respect it. And I think it demands your respect before you can make progress. If you just run in, wallop in the attack button, you're going to fail. And I think the stamina bar was probably the revelation that made it click, I think. Because I reckon the first time I played it, I don't think I even looked at the stamina bar.
Really?
And I was wondering why I was getting stabbed all the time. It was only until someone pointed out you can drop your shield and it comes back really quick. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And tried it out. I was like, oh! Because until then, the stamina bar had just been trickling up bit by bit. Because I don't think I let go of L1 the entire first couple of levels. I just literally clamped it down and never let go. Little revelations,
little nuances like that.
Yeah.
Just spark more and more options with the combat, and then you start to test things, and you start to test different weapons in different environments, and then you start to
see what you
you start looking deeper into what the weapons can do, if there's any effects on them. And I think that's when it becomes the more fascinating, because I don't think either of the games are unfair. I think that rather than many games will present you with a problem that you've got to overcome. I think with the Souls games, they present you with a problem and actively want you to find a way that's yours to get past it. And the accusations that the games are harsh, I think it's risk and reward. They'll put up a genuine challenge towards you, and they'll ask you to figure it out. And there are numerous ways around it. Make it easy or make it hard upon yourself. But the game will always reward you with something afterwards, whether that's a shortcut or, if you're dashing through a level blindly where the enemies are too tough for you. You might find a sword or a shield that changes everything.
Yeah.
Or, if you do... I like it. On my first playthrough of Dark Souls, I got the Black Knight's sword, which was way in advance of my level, and took ages level grinding to try and wield it. I mean, I think I went up about maybe 14 levels or something like that to get it. But once I'd gotten it, I sailed through about 3 or 4 stages.
Yeah.
So but you look on the likes of YouTube and you'll see people doing playthroughs, and their choices with, especially in Souls where there's more to choose from, their choices with regards to armor or weapons or magic will be uniquely theirs, and you might pick up a few like, I haven't tried that, or that weapon looks cool, or which bleeds on through to a further playthrough, if not in the one that you're running at.
Yeah,
currently.
I like as well that I've seen there's lots of schools of thought about like which weapons are good and which gear is good and which that, because there's no one weapon that's like get the ultimate weapon, you're done. That's all you need for the rest of the game, and that doesn't happen. I mean, I still towards the end of the game, I was still switching my gear out for almost every single level. I was trying to tailor it for what would work with that level. I mean, I did the same thing as you. I did quite a bit of level grinding so I could use that white bow that you find in Demon Souls.
I didn't use that.
By the time I got there, it was great because the range on it was amazing. You could just stand miles away and just by the time the thing got near you, it was dead. It was great.
Oh, fantastic.
Did like that white bow. The white bow was good fun, but it did take quite a bit of grinding to get there.
Yeah,
because it had pretty high requirements for a first playthrough, I think. I think by the time I got to the end, I'd got to about level 75, 80, perhaps.
I think, though, with regards to sort of risk and reward, I mean, I know sort of Saber mentioned a few things with the differences between Demons and Dark and why he prefers sort of Dark much more. But I think from when the game opens up after 1-1, you've got all those choices of the different worlds that you can go to, and yet 4-1 probably presents the most difficult enemies from the get-go.
Yeah,
but they're
definitely
also the ones that give you the most souls. So that's the level that I went to and would constantly be grinding to try and get better weapons and progress on in levels in Demon Souls.
Yeah.
But within the risk and it really was holding your breath, that especially those first times battling the skeletons, you know, it's fantastic training for the rest of the game because you're attuned to really tough enemies there. And I know that when you and I went through to the Adjudicator, when I sort of into your world.
Is that the word for it?
Yes.
Verschneezd.
Yeah, I think that may also be a Polish dish.
It does sound like a Polish dish.
What's for dinner today? Verschneezd. What's in there? Well, what's not? It's bits of carrot and I know.
Some fashne and some fnashk.
Verschneezd. Yeah, and the great thing about Verschneezd is that you can eat it and then rewind it later. Put it in the microwave and it becomes Verschneezd. But yeah, I think the game gives you some solid training for the rest of it with 4-1. But you know, once you get the crack addiction of getting 400 souls an enemy rather than
the kind of the 10 or 20 you'd get from the equivalent levels around the place as well. I mean, I kind of used to run through 2-1 for a bit, you know, because I thought, they're quite easy. I'm quite good at it now. I could run through it quite quickly. And then sort of got introduced to 4-1, and it's like, this is brilliant. I'm getting 10 times the souls for everything. They're kicking my ass, but it's worth it.
Well, when you get those skeletons in close environments as well. I mean, it's one thing where you've got them in with a massive expanse between the rocks as they go up, but when you get them in tight little corridors and stuff, which is something that the Souls games do very well, with sort of throwing an enemy at you and then going, yeah, we've not really increased the difficulty of the enemy, but we put you in a box with them. and you know, it goes on and you
know that advantage you had with space. Well,
well, I mean,
what did you think this is, Skylanders?
Well, it then does that with the gold skeletons as well, who really you have to make them fight to even give you the vaguest quarter. If they're doing sort of the wide arc chop, like in front of you, you've got no chance.
Especially on those little tight mountain paths as well, where you tend to find them.
And if you can draw them into the big swing, that's where you've got advantage. Or you can, chuck fire at them at distance. I don't think light fire, but the
goldies. I mean, they still gave me problems even when I went back later. I mean, the goldies gave me problems every time because they're fearsome. They just don't stop.
But you've got the aspect in 4-1 of those enemies that when they go truly batshit mental and try and swing at you, they're knackered afterwards. And
definitely.
yet the skeletons are just so cold and inhuman that if they strike your shield, they'll sort of shudder back, almost as if the reverberations are going through every one of their metal ribs and joints. But if you stab them, nah, they're not asked about that. Not bothered at all.
They do not care one jot. So almost like Terminators.
They are very, very much like that.
Big silver Terminators with broadswords.
I used to call them Cylon skeletons, I think. But,
just started watching Battlestar Galactica. I get that reference.
So at what point would you say that? I mean, obviously, with Demons, there's the point where it really clicked, and that was the fighting. At what point did the addiction kick in? At what point were you kind of like, oh my god,
I have to beat this now?
Was it when your good lady sort of started complaining that you were continually playing it, or
it was around that time, definitely?
Was it a boss battle or something within menus or progress?
Do you know what I think it was? I think it might have even been the Tower Knight. Was when I really kind of like, because I did the Tower Knight. I think I did it in 2 goes. I was really proud. It took me longer to get to him than it did to beat him, because that way up is got the dragon that comes on the bridge and burns you if you're not paying attention. It's got the dogs in the sewers underneath. It's got the 2 blue-eyed guys that come at you at once, which was I had problems there, lots of problems there. But actually getting to the knight and smashing through the knight was that little sort of confidence boost almost. It's like, yeah, this is doable. That guy was 8 times tall. Yeah,
he still gives me trouble. Everybody sort of seems to say, "Oh, he's quite fearsome," but I don't know whether it's my play style or a childhood fear of giants.
Did your mother feed you the wrong kind of sweet corn as a child?
No, I had this as a little aside. I had this this event happen to me as a child, which sounds more dodgy than it is, but. Do you ever have moments in your childhood where you go, that could never have happened, and yet it's one of your biggest memories? And I remember I lived on a drive, and I remember going round to my friend Stephen's house, and I don't think his folks were in, but we were in. It was a bungalow, and we were in his living room, and the troll from under the bridge, from the Billy Goat's Gruff,
right.
Knelt down in front of his front room window and looked in. We freaked out, and we ran sort of through to his bedroom, and you could hear this boom, 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 boom as the thing walked round the house.
Yeah.
And then we saw it looking in through his bedroom window, and we drew the curtains, and we were just really, really freaking out. And it's like a crystal clear memory. I think that we moved away from there, and I'm sure maybe about 10 years afterwards, I saw him, and he remembered it.
What were you two drinking?
I don't know. We found these special mushrooms in my dad's cupboard, and honestly, they bring nursery rhymes and fairy tales to life. No, but it's just very weird.
Are you sure it wasn't like a passing, maybe a Chinese New Year parade was going past, and it was the front of the Dragon Man that went past, and the boom, boom, boom you're hearing was the men in step in the line, walking along going boom, 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 boom down the road?
Since then, I think I've been sort of very fearsome of giants, and maybe it's the thing. Obviously, you don't really get them much in real life.
Not often.
Yeah. Where's the roof of the Westfield Centre today?
We got Andre that one time, and I think that was the only one we're ever going to get.
Swiped off by a giant who's now wearing it as a really big hat.
I think the only thing I've got from childhood that still scares the life out of me, probably E.T. Something about E.T. It gets me every single time. That film, I don't know. I'm old now. It shouldn't be a problem, but the bit when the kid goes out in the yard. And he opens, and he's looking around so he can hear something, and he pushes the bush aside, and the E.T. just goes, "Aah!" Oh! I didn't sleep for like a week after I saw that film. And then when he's lying on the floor, when he's all white and gross, and it's like, oh! I think one of my recurring nightmares was E.T. chasing me down a corridor.
I quite expect that Steven Spielberg will get to the end of his life, and he'll be on his deathbed, and that's the point where he revealed that wasn't actually E.T.'s finger; it was his penis.
With the glowy bit on the end.
It's just some alien paedophile that across the stars to touch children. No, well. You will never see that film in the same way again. I apologise for that.
And it wasn't the ship that got him at the end. It wasn't his home ship. Oh no, it was his pimp mobile. That's why it's all tricked out with the lights.
Yeah,
the regular ships, they're just
cast
black.
out from his home planet, and he wasn't sort of quite a young childlike alien. That's just an old man with a penis finger.
That's why he was all wrinkly.
Yeah. That's come down to have a bit of a product humanity.
Well, if you look at him, he's got tiny short legs, where he's old and he's sunk a bit. The regular aliens, they're like 10 feet tall. When they get older, they shrink.
E.T. kind of looks like a knob anyway. A knob, the knob finger, which would have been a better title for the film. Steven Spielberg presents A Magical Journey, Knob with a Knob Finger.
PT, the penile terrestrial.
Yeah, the extra paedophile terrestrial.
That film got really creepy.
It's not the film I...
Great, here come the nightmares again, thanks.
Yay, and now it's worse. But then we go into Mac and Me territory, which we won't really go into.
Oh,
that was hilarious.
That film. So yeah, anyway, getting back on topic. Yes, I recently, upon completing Demon's Souls, which I said I would do, and I did, and I beat it, and I was very proud of myself. I have now purchased the Darkest of Souls as well.
I'm dead impressed with how you kicked on in Demon's Souls, because there was stuff that I butted heads up against that you really cracked through quite.
Flamelurker was probably the one that surprised me the most. I was like, this is easy. Just run away and shove magic up his face. And it was really, really simple. And I didn't even know there was a place you could hide and he couldn't hit you. I was just running around, trying not to get hit.
Would you say that the thread, because we've got some fantastic people in the thread, and I genuinely get a kick out of reading all the adventures and all the battles and all the builds that people are popping on there. Do you think that added to your enthusiasm to kick on and share?
Oh yeah, definitely. Sharing the stories and things has been great. Yeah. I've always tried to. Whenever I had something fun happen, I always tried to write a little story out. And a lot of people have been doing that as well. And all the talk about some of the things that you will run into in Dark Souls, you think, Ornstein and Smurg, eh? Who's that? And it's interesting, and I'm looking forward to tackling them. How long it takes to get me to get there might be another issue. But it's that sort of thing. It's like, yeah, lots of people are still playing it. And the thing that probably surprised me the most is that when you're running around in Demons, there are still ghosts running around, and that game's like 4 years old now.
Exactly.
It's
obviously
mainly a single player game, realistically, isn't it? It's single player with multiplayer bits, but it's primarily based on you. And the amount of people still pottering about, it's like, that's mad.
I wonder if what they've done with the online aspect especially, I wonder if that is going to be one of the most influential aspects of a game this generation.
Well, Bungie are thinking the idea, aren't they? They're doing their shared world shooter, Destiny, so they've pinched the idea. So if more games do it, great.
But there's also the aspect that in a generation where games have become more accessible to people, and this isn't a slight on the Wii, because I think it's fantastic that more people have come into gaming and have found their niche and have found a kick, and whatever you're playing, fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at a point where games are leading you by the hand, where they're giving you markers, where you're being told where to go and funneled into directions, games that give you so much choice and difficulty, head-on difficulty, and ask you to think your way around it. And there could be easy choices, there could be hard choices. There's a multitude around. I'm wondering if that's going to be an aspect that we then take into next gen. And the popularity of the games and the amount of sales, but plus, exactly what you were saying about the sheer amount of people still playing.
It's surprising. I mean, I can't think of a single-player game that would have that kind of community still going. I mean, it's not entirely single-player, but let's just call it single-player for now. That would still have that kind of, obsession to keep playing. I mean, it's really cool to see.
I mean, I've got sort of games going on the PS3 version and the 360 version. But if I'm summoning somebody through to my world, or I'm going through to someone else's, the majority of the time there's stuff's still cracking off. I can jump through to someone's world where them and another phantom are battling an invader, or this. I wonder what the numbers are in comparison to, obviously, your Halos and your Call of Duties and your Battlefields are going to be massive. But on consoles, I'm wondering if that's the biggest community outside of those games.
The core shooter crowd.
Yeah, for people that are still playing online constantly, because a lot of a lot of companies seem to want to put multiplayer into the games, but outside of the first few weeks or first month, people have gone back to where their friends are.
Yeah, I mean, I like as well that the invaders that I have met, I've only met a couple, but for the most part, the invaders they've walked up and they've observed the etiquette, they've bowed first, and
I love it.
Where would you see that anywhere else? That's just happened. It wasn't a thing that's it's mandated. You have to stand there and you do a little animation or that. It's the players have chosen to do that, and they're still choosing to do it. And it's the kind of almost the maturity of the player base. It weeds out the people that just like go and are trying to just gank people. I think it's weeded a lot of those out by the fact that it is hard.
You still get the nutters and stuff. But
you do. I think the respect you need to have for it, the respect you've got to have for the game to keep playing it, I think weeds out a lot of the teenagers to generalise.
Yeah, I had a guy invade my game on the 360 one last week, and we had one hell of a battle, like really, really astonishing battle. We, completely different weapon sets, and it was trying to figure them out, and I was using a new technique which another invader actually messaged me about.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
Interesting.
Where instead of doing the lock on, you keep clicking the lock on off and on, which means that you slightly shuddering beyond their lock on.
Yeah.
But it was an invader that messaged me and told me that, which was kind of cool. But I got him down to maybe, if I got one more hit in, he was done.
Yeah.
And my energy must have been close to half, maybe. And he kicked in at the point where I swung. He kicked in with what must have been an R2 attack and floored the rest of my energy.
Ooh.
And it was I sat there on the sofa, and it was just beaming. I'd lost, but I was beaming because it was such a great battle. And it was such a phenomenal moment that he'd stepped into and thrown this swing.
Yeah.
I messaged him afterwards. I was like, that was just incredible. And he was, the person was double polite on the other side of it, and said that they really enjoyed the battle too. And
yeah,
I love that sort of stuff.
It's the fair play, I think. It's like, okay, I lost, but it's like it's fair that you lost. You weren't cheated out of it. It was like. Yeah. Wow, that was great. It wasn't just someone sitting in the corner hiding behind a shield poking every 30 seconds.
So what in the way of expectations have you got?
Yes,
for
expectations.
before you crack into it?
I've got a few, because that was the whole point of this podcast, to do the expectations, wasn't it? So let's actually do this now, half an hour in. I've heard that Dark is more arcadey of the two. I've heard it's a bit floatier, perhaps is the word. So you're a bit more mobile, a bit more roustabout. So I'm looking forward to, because in Demons, once I understood about weights and things, because I was just rolling with the heavy gear on, and I was just rolling slowly around the levels, like almost tripping over, like that wonderful gif of the fat guy in the MMA, just flipping backwards. I was doing that essentially. Once I'd found out that I could roll quickly, it kind of opened the game up for me. I'm looking forward to doing that again in Dark Souls and just whipping about the place and trying to, keep it a bit more arcadey, a bit more sort of flip flap flop, trying to mess with the enemies a bit. I'll be doing quite a bit of experimenting on them, at least in the first kind of level or two anyway, because I know there'll be, new things to do. I'm not expecting them to be the same as Demon Souls. I'm expecting them to. I know they have stamina meters.
Yeah, things are a lot more complex, but that's kind of in inverted commas because they just give you more that you can do. And within those complexities, you can now upgrade your armor as well as sort of your weapons.
God.
You can you'll get embers which will apply your lightning, fire, magic, all that kind of stuff. You've got magic and miracles, but there's also pyromancy which you can which is completely separate to the upgrade paths for magic and miracles, which you can use sort of quite early on. There's a lot there to monkey about with. Technical term, clearly. But that's the fun, and I think that's what broadens the scope of Dark Souls beyond demons. Is that it becomes even more personal in the way that you push on, the way that you want to do things. You'll find things sort of, I think, quite floaty to start off with compared to demons.
Yeah.
But when you start off, you'll hardly have sort of any weight, any decent armor, that kind of stuff. So the heavier aspect will kick in a little bit later with your choices. But I'm really, really excited to see what you make of it and to see where you go and what your choices are. And obviously, we've got a fantastic forum full of folks who've either been through the game or are going through the game again, or and maybe that'll be the same sort of thing where I was reading other people's adventures and thinking, I'm going to crack in with this character, or I'm going to do a magic run this time. Or,
yeah. I think in terms of character classes, I think I might pick something similar to what I picked for demons, like a hunter. I did quite well with my hunter because it was having the bow and the close-up weapon at the start was quite nice it was nice to get you, and it was like, okay, I've got options from the start. Because my problem with kind of, sword and sorcery kind of games is I always pick the big hulking great warrior every time.
I did that with demons and with the knight character, and then realised I wanted to kind of mess about with magic to get through a level, and it took me ages to do it. My magic was balls.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I always buy just not what's the word I'm looking for? By default. I always pick like a strong guy. So recently, in a lot of games, I've been trying to pick different classes. Like in Skyrim, I played a thiefy kind of guy, an invisible cat man, and that went well. Went really well. So I'm experimenting. Definitely experimenting. Picked up Torchlight as well a while ago, and I started playing with the alchemist character who can summon stuff. And that was fun. That was because my little army doing all my work for me was wonderful. So yeah, I'm going to stick with my hunter build because it's a bit combat-y, but it's also a bit nippy, and a bit more sort of rolly, a bit more mobile than your standard tank man.
You've also got the choice of a gift at the start of the game that you can choose.
saw that, yeah.
And there's one in particular that might make your life a little bit easier. So it's up to you if you wish me to share that with you.
Do you know what? I'm going to discover it. I want to
do it.
I want to make the mistake. I want to be told off for the mistake afterwards.
No, I mean there's no right or wrong choice, but one just I don't know. I'm not even going to say the sentence that I was going to say afterwards because it would make it obvious which one I was going to mention. But yeah, I'm just really curious to see what you make of it.
Yeah.
And then to catch up and sort of share thoughts and see if you've got any questions from there, and we'll I'll see if I can address them. And I might even start up a new character on PS3 and see if I can jump into your game and we can go on.
Bro it out.
Yeah, because I mean I did that on 360 with Sean, and we had sort of a few battles on that front with raging through a level. But we also did the same thing, you and I, on 4-1 on Demon's Souls. So.
And this time we'll do it with audio. Because last time, I remember I was stood there trying to find an item in my inventory, and you kind of looked like you were looking at me like, has he frozen? Has his connection gone? And I was just stood still, flicking through my inventory to try and find a certain item.
I think that was one of those things where we weren't even sure if we could do it, if we could wangle sort of getting into the same world. So,
and just by pre-selecting where to put the sign seemed to help.
Yeah.
So I mean, what we can do then? So next time, so between now and the next time we do this, hopefully we'll try and do this once a week, perhaps.
I mean, you know, I'll probably just talk to myself about souls if nobody will listen.
I get the thing you
forever alone, except for Lordran.
I mean, next time we could maybe bring someone else in who wants to chat. We might have a special guest or two.
It'd be cool to if we can show some footage at a certain point. Get people commenting on play styles in the comments underneath, and then take that back to another podcast. But
whether that footage is embedded with this podcast or whether we'll do it as a separate aside, because I'm not sure if I can play 45 minutes worth of audio video split together. It could make this podcast go behind schedule. If we do it separately or together, I'm going to be pressing some buttons in the next few days.
Yeah, it'd be cool to mix it up, to have some audio-only podcasts which make it easy for people to listen to in bed or on the train, or even if they're kind of running through the levels and level grinding and stuff.
Pop some video on when it makes sense.
Yeah, and then do sort of run-throughs and commentary. But yeah, the idea of sort of these little sort of polysouls casts is really to bring in people from our community, bring in others from elsewhere. It'd be great to get Mike McWhirter on, Phil Collars, a really big fan, Dave Tack is.
Yep.
And
I know Plant and Frustrick have been playing it as well. One of their Today I Played things.
That'll be awesome. I really enjoyed those. But even sort of people from podcasts beyond this, I know Midnight Resistance are really big Souls fans. Rab Florence would be a dream to get on there. Matt Lees, the legendary Matt Lees, would be good to get on there. But yeah, there's a lot of really passionate people beyond our forum. Obviously, with the editorial that we've got on Polygon, and once again, everybody that contributes to that Dark Souls thread and makes new threads under Dark Souls or Demon Souls. It's a joy to read, and the reason that I respond to as much of it as possible is because I genuinely adore reading it. You make the place a pleasure, so thank you to everyone.
It's like I get with Metal Gear.
Yeah?
Yes, the Patriots, I know! I'm a touch excited for when Ground Zeroes is coming out, I really am.
I might sort of get Revengeance on a rent next week to see.
I'm scared that I'm going to have to play it. I don't think I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm going to have to play it. So I really didn't like the demo.
But I really enjoyed the playthrough that Arthur and Phil and Mike did last week.
Yes, constantly moaning about the camera every 10 seconds.
But on the other side of it, it might be fun to pick up the original Metal Gear Solid on PSN and pick your brains on that. So
well, my brains are incredibly pickable on that front. I can say that much.
With Lint Exchange, as was mentioned on the forums today. So, but yeah, if we close it off there for now.
Let's do that. Yes. Thank you for listening to our first Padcoft, which we will find a better name for, because I don't know about you, I think that's really bad.
Yeah. The Polysouls cast, I guess, is probably an easy one for now.
Polysouls might work. If we can think of an amusing pun, like maybe coffee and PD.
That makes it sound like an 80s cop duo. It also makes you sound like a rapper.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, coffee and PD, yo.
But then people will think it's about Polygon Daily. That won't work.
We'll figure it out.
Yes, we will. For now, I've been Paddy. He's been Coffee. And we'll probably talk to you same time next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. Roll title music.